Welcome, guys. This is G. Just giving you another heads up on a video. Hopefully you find this useful. So today is pretty much about finding out the ways to use EQs to the best of your abilities. So there's different types of EQs we use. The idea is to figure out when to use a particular type of EQ compared to another EQ. So almost think of EQs as your brushstrokes as an artist. So you have things that could give you broad strokes that will allow you to do quick movements, and then you have real surgical shit that will make you sort of do moves that will sort of pick particular frequencies that might be interfering with others or might be favorable for the mix. But the idea is if you don't know how to use these EQs properly, you don't know the broad strokes and the fine-tuned strokes and the detailed strokes you could use. So this is what the idea of today is. So I'm here just to sort of help out, pass on some knowledge and hopefully get some things from it. And it is something that you should practice a lot. Later on in future episodes and tutorials, I'll go through how different EQs sound as opposed to boosting 100 hertz for, on an API to 100 hertz on a Pultec EQ to a SSL EQ to, a V EQ, how they all sound different and interact differently with music. But what I first want to get you used to is just focusing in on the sounds and components that you can use. So let me first go to a diagram. This is our first EQ that we're going to be using, which is a very important but sort of, I don't know, just less taught EQ to use. But firstly, let me just show you like a basic diagram that will hopefully give you a visualization to where you need to place EQs for certain instruments. So this is the first thing, is the basic of sound, pretty much the principle. So you have compression, and then you have rarefaction. Just think of it as ripples in the waves. This is how sound travels. So you have a positive motion and a negative motion. So this is called a sound wave. People can hear between 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So sound reacts when particles are very close to each other or further apart. So the closer they are, the more energy you can transfer compared to further away. But anyway, so sound will travel at, you guys are going to hate me if I get this wrong, but 353 meters per second at about 25 degrees Celsius with 60% humidity. I know I'm going to get a lot of, no, beep, you got that wrong. Anyway, that's what I remember from like years ago. The more important thing to remember, rather than that theory if it's wrong, but it should be sort of close, is you need to develop an idea of where you want to place things in your mix. This is where your EQ happens. So you could develop a theory and a visualization of where you want to place your kick drum, or where you want to place your bass, to your snare, to your hi-hat, to your percussion, to your vocal, and all the other extra like cool effects that you have. So try to look at it in terms of where you want to place it within the speaker, and divide the speaker up and look at the speaker and think, okay, I want to place this there, this there, this there. So I've just categorized it in a few different elements. You've got your sub frequencies, and usually what belongs down there? Yeah, kick, sub bass, blah, blah, blah. Lows, you got your kicks and bass more appearing. You got some guitars, you got some synths, maybe a little bit of the vocal or whatnot. But then as soon as you start going up, you're going up in elements. So now you're dealing with more synths, guitars, vocals, strings. And then going up to the high mids, you're still dealing with the vocals because you need to tackle like a big chunk of the speaker for vocals. You got your hi-hats will come and play there. You got your synths, you got your strings, you've got your toms, you've got a bit of the kick drum, a bit of the bass happening there. And then you go into the highs, which is also called like the air frequencies. So, you know, usually maybe about 7K upwards, 8K upwards, which gives you the real sparkle that people talk about. So it's all the same shit, air, sparkle, you know, brightness, highs. It's just different ways of communicating language with music, whatever relates to you. So with that, let's go to our first example. And I'm just going to go theory first, and then I'll show you a visualization of it. I want to take you through this journey, so bear with me. Your first main type of EQ, and the most powerful EQ that you can have, is your high-pass filter and your low-pass filter. So high-pass filter, which is this symbol, allows the higher frequencies to pass through and filters the lower frequencies. So you can almost go and look, okay, whatever's at this point, if I set it there, it's going to go through. Same objective. I'm going to show you a visualization of this in Logic soon. But a low-pass filter allows the higher frequencies to pass through and reduces the lower ones beyond that. So you sort of pick a point where you sort of want to like maneuver where you want frequencies to come in and poke out or be reduced, whatnot. So with that being said, let's go to our session. Mr. Logic, just a random track. Mind your ears, I'm just going to play this real quick. Bassline, if you can't figure that out by now. But the reason why I'm also showing it in Logic is because I can do this shit. I can show you from there to a much more visual example. So let me just first start with the high pass filter and low pass filter. So high pass filter. Let me visually show you what's going on. So I'm activating that, and you can see it's cutting frequencies. Let me set it here. So anything below 100 Hertz, notice that it reduces quite a bit. Same thing as the opposite range. So it's allowing the lower frequencies to pass through and reducing the higher frequencies. This is reducing the lower frequencies and allowing the higher frequencies to pass through. So once again, it's reducing the lower frequencies on a high pass filter and allowing anything beyond 100 Hertz to come through. In the opposite stage, we've got a low pass filter, which is reducing all the frequencies above 5K, obviously with a gradient, and then allowing all the frequencies below 5K to come through. So this is like a broad stroke EQ, but like one of the more powerful EQs that you can use. I don't think people use this enough, which I need to suggest that you need to start getting into, and I'll tell you the reason why. So for example, if we broke up our speaker into the example that we used before, so this is our mix. We've got it all happening, all working, and we need to figure out where things reside in a mix within the speaker. So what belongs down here, as mentioned before, you really only need the kick and bass, and you need to pick which one wins that battle, but that's something we can cover later. Do you think the hi-hats belong down here? Hell no. Do you think some percussions belong down here? Hell no. The thing is as well, because your speakers might not represent the full spectrum, because if you got like a little speaker like this, you're not going to be able to hear the lower sub frequencies of a sound compared to a big ass mofo. The thing is, just because you can't hear it doesn't mean it's not there. You need to make sure that you are anticipating these frequencies that are there and get rid of it. Because if you're not getting rid of that frequency base, you're pretty much taking energy up, which could be left for a kick drum or a bass. Like, come on, what's more important? Same thing like a vocal. Usually nothing below like 80 hertz belongs there. But the thing is, if an artist is like tapping their foot when they're singing or whatnot, or moving the microphone, there's mechanical vibrations that go through the speaker stand, through the mic stand, sorry, into the microphone. So that's all frequencies you can't hear if your speaker can't replicate it. Doesn't mean it's not there. So your main tool, as I said before, is just to get rid of that shit. You can just do this move and you'll notice your mix is getting clean. Don't believe me? It's a little bit tricky to sort of hope for. Damn, these clients. Sorry. I had to chuck that away because I get distracted. Look at this. If I clear this up, for example, anything below 100 hertz in any of my instruments, I suddenly have left space for my kick drum. I have suddenly left space for my bass to come through. Nothing else, no energy that you are not anticipating or not hearing is coming through. If I got a hi-hat, for example, I don't need any shit below there, cut it out. Suddenly you're placing your mix and instruments in layers and strategically placing them in spots that you need to. So realistically, as I said, anything belongs here, depending on, it's all dependent. But, you got your kick and bass, that's it. What about up here? You can cut stuff out you don't need. Maybe there's a hi-hat that's like too crazy up here that you will need to like subdue. Or maybe there's like some top end hiss that needs to come out that is being recorded due to the recording situation. You can just get rid of it. I tend to use this more than this. But, whatever tickles your fancy and works, just use it. But I know this low-end information is so valuable because I need to put certain things there that I need to make space. And you'll notice clarity of instruments as soon as you start putting these on. So get into a habit. As soon as you have an instrument, go, all right, where does this need to belong? Where doesn't it need to belong? And just get rid of it. But if you need to come back to it, you can always do this. You go, oh, I need a little bit more. I need a little bit more. Or, you know what? I don't need that at all. I can just go here. But as long as you're aware of that, very crucial thing. Next thing is this bad boy. And what am I talking about? A high and low shelf. These are EQ moves that are broad strokes that you could use. So like painting, I want to have, quick movements of stuff. I just want to keep in the moment and not really think about it, but I want to add more top end. I want to add more bottom end or cut in a particular different way compared to a filter. So you can do that by, let me show you the diagram. So you can either boost or cut, low shelf, high shelf, quick moves. So an example of this would be, let me pull Logic back up. Get rid of this bad boy. For example, I just feel inspired, I'm mixing, I'll put like a bass synth down, oh, quick, I just want a quick move. I just want to make it sound good straight away. Boom. Might fine tune it from there, but my idea right now is to get a feel for the track and just put in stuff that makes sense at this point. You know, it's like that statue. You got this idea, then you keep chipping away. This is like a broad stroke, but it will hopefully give me enough inspiration or enough movement to keep going on and on. Same thing like with a vocal. Okay, you know what? I want some vocal sibilance. Boom. I want some strings in there. I want some horns in this bad boy to come out. I can do a move and then later I can cut stuff out if I need to. You know, I'm boosting over here and just cutting there. One annoying frequency. That is a very particular type of move compared to that move. So hopefully you get what I mean. You got your broad strokes. Now we're going to get into more fine detailed strokes. So you got two types of EQs beyond this that you could use. You have semi-parametric and parametric EQs. Both do different things, but both have different particular types of like implementations that you can use throughout the mix. So let me start off with parametric EQ, and then I'll go to semi-parametric. And I'll show you like an example of this through my diagrams. Hope you guys like, you know, I could have drawn this up really terrible, but did a bit of effort. So this bad boy is my parametric EQ. So notice I've got three different features here, three different parameters. I've got a frequency range that I can sweep. I have a gain stage where I can boost or cut. And then I have a Q value, which means I can boost a very particular type of frequency or go more broad range. So this is the most surgical tool that you can have at your disposal. So it's a very important thing to understand where if you have particular types of frequencies that are bothering you, and you need to really get in there and do the fine detailed strokes, this is your EQ that you need to get into. Yeah, so you can usually boost between 20 Hertz to 20K, depending on the type of EQ. You usually have variable gain stages from boosting and cutting, and variable Q. So the higher the Q value, the more narrow it is. The broader the Q value, you go like this. So let me show you an example visually. Again, within Logic, let's get rid of this. So this is my frequency. This is my gain. This is my Q value. So let me do a broad stroke. I hear something cool in a vocal, boom. That's a very broad stroke that I'm doing here. I can pick whatever frequency I want and get into it. The thing is, what if I like this frequency, but I don't like what it's doing to all these other frequencies? Then suddenly I've got my Q value. So remember I said the higher the Q, the more narrow it is. The lower the Q, the more broad it is. fine-tuned stroke, broad stroke, whatever you want. And then you've got your cut. So remember these tools that you have at your disposal, because the thing is, these are a big part of your tools that you can use to manipulate sounds and add those darknesses and, you know, lights and shadows that you want in a mix. So it's very cool to know the different parameters. So parametric EQs are movable with the frequency. You can boost or cut them and adjust the Q value. Does this make sense? I hope so. I really do. If not, please hit me up with questions. Let's start group discussions. I'm sure everyone's got like different opinions about all this stuff, but just showing you this simple shit that works and useful to know. So the next type of EQ, which is a semi-parametric EQ, one of these stages are fixed. So you either have a fixed Q value or a fixed frequency range. Usually, 9 times out of 10. The reason for these EQs is it's been manipulated to a point where, you know, certain EQs are very good for certain types of instruments. So like, for example, a pool tech for low end information is very good because of its particular type of EQ sort of sensibility that it can add to a sound. While the SSL EQ has a particular type of frequency and way of dealing with sounds compared to an API EQ. You know, and you can go to a Trident EQ, which is very good for guitars. It's just because the frequencies they've picked, the Q values they've added to it are very favorable for music sort of sensibility within those instruments. You know, there's no rules, obviously. You can add it to a vocal, you can do it to strings or whatnot, but there's a particular way they've designed these types of EQs which work favorable. Some more than others, some, you know, just pretty blasé. But just remember, one of these parameters are reduced. So parametric EQ is you have flexibility all around. Semi-parametric EQ, you have one fixed value, which musically works differently depending on what you want to use. Hope this is making sense. I can show you an example again. Let's get rid of this because this is a parametric EQ. Let me go again. Technology was against me at that point. API EQ, one of my favorites by Waves. If you don't know it, you should be knowing Waves. Very good sort of manufacturer of plugins and digital simulations, and you know what? Can't mix a record without it. Sounds amazing. But have a look at this. Let me get my little red spotlight out. Check this out. This is the frequencies that it's attending to. And then I've got my cuts in the white. And then I've got my boosts in the whites. Notice there's no Q value in these. So when I'm boosting 75 Hertz at 2 dB, I'm boosting it at whatever API and Waves have sort of come across with for that particular frequency. That 75 Hertz, I'm telling you now, and I'll show you examples with different plugins, that 75 Hertz on an API EQ compared to another EQ at 75 Hertz sounds completely different. Some might be more favorable for percussion instruments or low end, or the sibilance of something or the attack of something. Same thing with compressors. I use compressors not just for compression. I just add it for an EQ because it sounds and tonally changes something. A lot of things to sort of contemplate and go through, but I just want to get you used to the fact that there's different types of EQs at your disposal. And then as I go along, I'll show you the different types of EQs that are good for kick drums, for bass, for vocal, and whatnot. So hopefully you get a little bit of a sense of an idea of what I'm talking about. And hopefully it has inspired you or made you think a little bit differently about how to use an EQ or approach an EQ. As I said, I'm going to be doing this like weekly. If you've got comments or any feedback, please let me know. But what I want to try to do is not mix records and show examples of songs that I use in the real world examples, because not everyone has that exposure sometimes. I'm very fortunate that I can be in a big studio and do some stuff, cool shit. But I want to use examples that are more relevant to you. So if you're a home producer or singer-songwriter and you want to get your song sounding better, please start sending these links in to the YouTube channel. And, whichever has the most likes and you want me to sort of touch on or show examples on, I'll get into it. I'd rather do that than show examples of songs that I mix with, other people. I want to keep it personal to you. I want to make it more engaging with your journey and make it more accessible to you. So I'm going to show you examples that don't cost you millions and millions of dollars. I'm just going to show you quick shit that just relates to you that you could use practically. But I have to go through at least a little bit of the basics to, clear my conscience and go, look, at least I showed you some of the stuff. And then I'll take you through that journey and bring you to the other end. But anyway, this is G coming in again on the YouTube channel. If you like it, great. I'll be here next week. If not, I'm still here next week. All right, guys, this is G, out.